Good afternoon and welcome to our webinar this afternoon, celebrating our entrepreneurial journey, diverse women succeeding in Atlantic Canada. I am pleased to welcome you all here this afternoon as we have this celebratory event. As many of you are aware, throughout Atlantic Canada, the 4 women's entrepreneurship organizations have come together in the past couple of years to work together to create the Atlantic Canadian Women in Growth Partnership Project. So as we get started here, I want to acknowledge and thank my colleagues across Atlantic Canada for their work in putting together this presentation. We have the Centre for Women in Business out of Nova Scotia participating, as well as the Prince Edward Island Business Women's Association and the New Brunswick Women in Business Association. To find out more information about these organizations, you can check out the chat. Throughout these presentations, we will be putting a number of links and information in the chat, as well as opportunities to check out the programs and services offered by our partners across Atlantic Canada. My name is Jennifer Bissell. I am the CEO of the Newfoundland and Labrador Organization of Women Entrepreneurs. That's a mouthful, so we just call ourselves NLO. Makes life a lot easier. I'm very delighted to welcome you all here today. I have things popping up on my screen, so excuse me for a moment. There we go. And before we get started, I just want to say hello to this lovely lady who's sharing the screen with me here today. It's Manjit Minhas. Thank you so much for coming and joining us today.
Thanks, Jennifer. Thanks for talking to me. I'm looking forward to it.
Excellent. As we get started here today, I am going to tell you a little bit about Manjit and her background. It's very impressive. Manjit is an award-winning, born and raised Calgarian, engineering student turned beer baroness. That is a mouthful. Entrepreneur who founded Minhas breweries, distilleries, and wineries at the ripe age of 19 years old with her brother, Ravinder Minhas, who has grown the company to the 10th largest brewery in North America. So just stop and ponder that for a second, because I don't know about you, but I'm an avid beer lover and I know of a lot of breweries. So the 10th largest in North America is very astonishing. Selling over 8 billion, not million, there's a B in there, billion pints of world-class beer, and had revenues of 270 million last year. She is the host, as I'm sure many of you already know, of the top 10 Apple podcasts, the Manjit Minhas podcast, where she has interviews with top business leaders and CEOs to gain insight and to hear how you too can walk the path of success. She is an accomplished public speaker and mentor. Minhas is widely recognized for her role as the straight-talking, tough dragon investor with flair on the multi-award-winning CBC show Dragon's Den for the last 8 seasons. Manjit's leadership has been recognized numerous times, including Canada's Top 40 Under 40, Alberta Centennial Medallion, Ernst & Young Entrepreneur of the Year, Chatelaine Magazine's Top Entrepreneur Woman of the Year, and Forbes and Profit Magazine's Top 100 Women Entrepreneurs in Canada. Manjit sits on numerous public, private, and charitable boards and is actively involved in her communities to support Canadian women entrepreneurs and women's initiatives. Manjit lives in Calgary with her husband and her 2 young daughters. So welcome, Manjit.
Thank you.
Today, you will notice we do have French interpretation for those of you who would like to avail of that service. As you look at your screen, if you don't have a line of icons on the bottom, just touch your screen. They should show up. There's a little globe there with interpretation written in under it. If you click on that, you'll have the option to choose French. And if you choose French, you will hear the remainder of this presentation. It will be interpreted for you into French. Okay, before we get started, we like to warm everyone up with a little video and get people excited about the chat we're going to have. So I'm going to turn it over to my colleague Susan, and she is going to play a video for us.
Where there's booze, there's money. And where there's money, there's crime.
Tell Bloomer we're looking for.
Bootlegging, mobsters, believe the real story of Fred Bloomer.
I'm not going to jail for Bloomer. It's over. It's over.
Visit the Minhas Micro Distillery to see the movie and try the hooch.
The movie trailer you just saw combines many of the elements of what Manjit Minhas is. She's creative and daring, and she makes great tasting beers and spirits.
So I think we can do really well together, and I can get you there.
I would love to accept your
I
offer.
look forward to it.
You may know Manjit Minhas as a dragon, but she is so much more. Let me take you back to the beginning. Meet Ravinder and Manjit Minhas, the founders and owners of Minhas Breweries, Minhas Distilleries, and Minhas Winery. Born and raised in Calgary, Alberta, Canada, and educated as petroleum engineers, Manjit and Ravinder have become internationally acclaimed in the liquor and beer business. The siblings entered the liquor business at the age of 19 by producing private label spirits to sell in retail liquor stores. Within a few short years, they had expanded their portfolio to 90 brands of beer, spirits, and wines. It was their expansion into beer that made them major players in the industry. In 2003, the duo formed Mountain Crest Brewing Company with a unique strategy: sell a high-quality beer at a fair price. Mountain Crest Classic Lager became an instant success with consumers who appreciated an honest price for a quality product. The Minhas family is now North America's 9th largest brewer with production at numerous facilities, including Calgary and Wisconsin. After purchasing the Joseph Huber Brewing Company in 2006, Ravinder and Manjit turned the legendary brewery into the nation's fastest growing brewery. Equipped with state-of-the-art manufacturing plants, the Minhas breweries and distilleries continue to expand into new markets and new product categories, such as hard seltzers, old-fashioned soda, CBD-enhanced beverages, and even hand sanitizer during the pandemic. They're also making headlines through numerous high-profile partnerships with celebrities such as the Nelk Boys, Hollywood director Paul Feig, Gene Simmons, and Aisha Curry. And in 2020, Manjit started a business and entrepreneur podcast in which she talks to leaders, entrepreneurs, and CEOs about their journeys and experiences and gives real-world advice to listeners. The Manjit Minhas podcast premiered and continues to be in the top 10 podcasts. Today, with families of their own, Manjit and Ravinder continue to ensure the success of the Minhas legacy. Where they go next is anyone's guess, but one thing is for sure. They'll go there with the commitment to quality and integrity that consumers associate with the Minhas name. And now, I present you Manjit Minhas, beer baroness, venture capitalist, philanthropist, mother, wife, dragon.
Thank you. That's a great video. I don't know quite what to say to follow up that one.
It always makes me thirsty when I watch it, definitely. It's
well, I did actually have to sneak some water. And I wish it were something else. This is true. Mhm. So thank you so much for joining us here today, and thank you for supplying that video to give us a little bit of your history and your background. Throughout the Atlantic Canada Women in Growth Partnership Project, one of the key areas that we have been focusing in on is underrepresented groups within the ecosystem, with women often being an underrepresented group in and of themselves, but then also there are a number of other factors that need to be considered as well. So can you tell us a little bit about your entrepreneurial journey, but specifically in the context of representing an underrepresented group within the ecosystem and how that's impacted your journey?
Yeah, so as kind of mentioned in the video, it went by quick, but for those who don't know, my entrepreneurial story actually starts well before 19. It actually starts when I was 13. And the reason it starts then was because my parents, who are immigrants to this country, came from India, my dad at 21 and my mom at 9. And, you know, my dad had to redo an engineering degree, and that's how he ended up in Calgary, working for one of the biggest oil companies here in Calgary. And he and my mom, after his graduation and getting a job, decided to start a family here. And so I was born and raised here. And well, I was made to be good in math and science. And I say made because I have 2 little girls also, and I am making them be good in math and science. And, you know, I really did think that my life and my career would be also in oil and gas, especially here in Calgary. And while things changed for me a little bit, but like I say, when I was 13, because there was a downturn in the oil patch. And my dad was suddenly laid off in 1993 from the oil patch. And he really didn't know what he was going to do. There was no prospects in that industry. My mom was a stay-at-home mom. We were a typical middle-class family. And my dad, through the help of some friends, discovered that Ralph Klein, weeks later after his forced retirement from the oil and gas industry, was privatizing the retail liquor industry here in Alberta, which meant the government was going to be out of selling liquor to its citizens. You would not know that out in the Maritimes because the government is still very involved, as it is actually in most of the country. But my dad opened a liquor store just before that Christmas. And also, like I said, I was young. And so we worked in the store, my brother and I, weekends, evenings, you know, summers, just when we weren't in school. And by osmosis, we learned a lot about entrepreneurship. We also learned a lot about the liquor industry. And so when I was studying in university, also engineering, thinking I was still on that path to be an oil and gas engineer, you know, I thought, why not bring a private label brand of spirits to my parents' stores? They did very well in a lot of bars, restaurants, that wholesale side of the business. So why not bring something that was unique for them, and in the meantime, make a business for ourselves? And so we sold my dad on it, and he said, okay, well, it's got to be great product. I got to make some money along the way. And well, let's try. And so I'll try it out. And so my brother and I, and I'll talk a little bit more about that later, you know, came up with a branding marketing, really a branding and marketing company to come up with brands of spirits and then beer, which we launched a couple years later in 2003. And, you know, my journey every step along the way, it definitely was fraught with a lot of challenges. First and foremost, I did not have the pedigree in the liquor business that everybody else around me had. Most manufacturers at that time were in the business for hundreds of years, not just a couple years. They were all legacy companies. And so not only did I not have the background, but also I was young, I was 19, I was a woman also, all like 3 things against me right off the bat. And also I was from an underrepresented group. There were not many Indian people that were in the liquor business. Unfortunately, still not that many today, but much more than there were 23 years ago. And so, you know, I decided that wasn't going to stop me. And I think most of my life has been that, whether it be studying engineering, and I could count on, unfortunately, 2 hands and, you know, large halls in classrooms as to how many women there were. And my life journey has definitely been a lot about not really realizing on purpose what the doors in front of me were and how they were closed, and how the rooms that I wanted to be in, I was going to try to break down that door in many different ways in order to be at those tables and be in those rooms. Not to say that I haven't spent many days angry, frustrated, full of emotion, full of tears, especially in the beginning days of our business. And many days still, many people think because I am successful, that I don't have those challenges still. And I do, absolutely, in a variety of different ways, but they absolutely are still there. But when I was starting, it was more apparent, and I used it as fuel to fire me up to say, I am going to have a successful vodka. I'm going to have the first successful beer, Mountain Crest, not only, you know, Alberta, but across the country and around the world that that hasn't been from one of the big companies. And I think that, I've definitely had a lot of support around me. And that first was my family. They were my mentors. My father helped me build that first business plan, was my first customer for sure. But it was support around me, not only from extended family after, but from colleagues and from mentors. And I've been very purposeful of all of those people that have supported me around me, because I truly believe that people inspire you or they drain you, and you have to choose those people around you very carefully. And I chose my brother and my business partner, which is a whole nother story, I guess, in family business, but also sibling business. But in understanding what we were both passionate about, but what were the unique skills that we brought to the table that were different, and the synergies that we had as far as our goal, what we wanted to accomplish, and how we were going to be able to do that using our individual talents and skills. And so we definitely have, not only in the beginning years, but as time has gone on, I'm always worked on perfecting and not only diversifying those talents and skills, but kind of switching roles to make sure that we're always keeping interested and inspired.
Mm-hmm. Thank you for that. And I love, because I hear this a lot when I talk to very successful women. They say, you have to make a choice one day. There's a lot of frustrations along the way. You can choose to let that get to you, or you can choose to let it fuel you. So the fact that you use the fire, the passion, the fuel, it was a way of, it's frustrating. It can get you down. There's a lot of obstacles that happen, but you have to make that choice of whether or not you're going to let that inspire you and drive you, or whether you're going to let that push you down. And I think it's an important message, because everyone feels it at every level of success. The whole piece of imposter syndrome is alive and well. Do people often ask you about imposter syndrome?
Absolutely. I think that, yeah, everybody has it. Everybody thinks it's unique to them. Absolutely not. It's just that some people are better at maybe masking it or hiding it than others, and they cope with it differently. Absolutely. I have a life motto is to say yes more than I say no, because you never really know until you put yourself out there as to what the opportunity might be, but what you might enjoy and be good at. And it's a great way to network, to learn new things. I'm always about continuous learning, going to bed 1% smarter than I woke up in the morning. And you have to do that in a variety of different ways as you get older, as also it gets sometimes more challenging to learn in different ways. And so, especially even during the pandemic, when we're, all just to ourselves. And so I truly believe that we all need to push our limits, and that we do need to focus on the facts when dealing with imposter syndrome. What are the facts? What do I have? What do I bring to the table? Also to build that confidence. And you do that by putting yourself out there, by taking risks, by taking educated and risks that you hopefully can control, but you can't control everything. But taking risks where you know that you're willing to give up some things if things don't go right, but then also learning from what doesn't go well, not right away, understanding that it's challenging, frustrating, angering, and all the feelings when things don't go your way. But everybody goes through those feelings and challenges. And it's about taking some time afterwards to go back and evaluate what went right, what went wrong, and where you can improve from there. And it is important to understand that what helps you build confidence, and that everybody goes through different phases of it. And it is something that you constantly do have to work at. Nobody is born out of the womb with immense confidence and the skills to do everything. It is something that you have to build on, and slowly and surely build on. And I think that it is also a lot of practice. You have to, in a lot of different ways, practice. I truly believe that when you go into somewhere confident to begin with, you're able to take in the challenges and understand how to truly listen, understand how to set goals and what you are looking for from any experience. It has to be give and take. Otherwise, no experience, no career is ever satisfying.
No, I 100% agree. And I also was very inspired by what you had to say around surrounding yourself by the positive people, understanding, who you surround yourself with will largely impact your success more than anything else. If you surround yourself with people that are bringing you down, then you're going to be down. If you surround yourself with people who are lifting you up, then you are going to be up. And that's an important message, I think, for people, because often we don't realize the impact those around us can have on us.
My parents used to say when I was young, and I didn't understand until I was an adult, that you are the average of the 5 closest friends and people to you. So you know what? Make sure that you are choosing those friends and those individuals closely. And I always used to say, you're crazy. And I tell my own kids that, who are 10 and 13, they don't get it yet. Sometimes I'm helping choose for them. But I think that it is very true, because mindset and energy is real. And I do believe that you wake up in the morning with a positive mindset. If you go to bed with a dream and a passion, and you're fueled by those around you who are pushing you to do better. In school, it used to be, when that you were friendly competing, but competing for marks. Who's, doing better? Who's in the most clubs? Who's the MVP, or who's the a captain of the field hockey team or basketball team? And as you become an adult, there's other things that you're looking at, that you're, I want to say, competing with, but also sharing with each other. Because I truly believe that true leaders are those that don't create followers, are those that create more leaders. And we do that by sharing the good, the bad, and the ugly.
Definitely. I'm going to switch gears here a little bit now and talk to you about pitching yourself, pitching your business, just pitching life in general. Being able to pitch yourself is very important to any entrepreneur starting out. It's particularly important if you are from an underrepresented group, or your business, your product, your service might be perceived as different from the norm, or you might not feel that you belong. So you have to struggle with that as well during that pitch process. What tips and strategies do you have for other women who are trying to perfect their pitch? And I know you do this a lot on the Dragon's Den, and you talk a lot about this, so take it away.
Yeah, I've definitely seen thousands of pitches over 8 years, 8 seasons, not only in the den, but everywhere where I go, which is actually quite fantastic, whether it be the elevator or the airplane, or my kids' school. It really doesn't matter, which I think is fantastic, because people are getting more comfortable with the fact of pitching and selling. I truly believe that pitching is just another word for selling. And pitching is a transfer of passion. And I think that always, 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 everybody should think of it that way, that you need to be able to tell your story. And let's start with your product or your service, your business. And when you are pitching, most people think of it as when they're pitching for an investor, for a sale, for their product or their service. And so how do you do that in a concise manner and that answers the other person's questions, or asks them for more information later, makes them want more? And so, there are a couple basic things that everybody does have to touch on. And to start with, that is answering the 5 W's in how. So who you are. Tell your story. What is unique about that widget that you were trying to sell? Listen, in my case, it could be a can of beer. I didn't invent beer. Many other people make beer, but what makes me unique that is making it different? So tell your story. Every individual story is unique. Who you are is extremely important, because at the end of the day, we are all dealing with people. We all want to be, no matter who we are, around people that we enjoy, that we are learning from, but also want to spend time with others that, we think that we will enjoy, whether as an investment or just as a customer. And so who you are is super important. What you're selling. Very quickly, in one sentence, you got to keep it simple. Many people lose customers and investors in their pitch when they start talking about what it is. They complicate it way too much. Nobody needs to know all the weeds and the minutia of the details. They need to know it in one sentence. The fewer words, the better, as to what you are selling. And also what problem you are solving. The best businesses and the best products are solving a problem. What problem are you solving for your potential customers or your investor? And also, if not you're solving a problem, what is and how is it going to make anybody's life better? Those are the two reasons anybody buys a product. And so where geographically, that is important. There are many customers and investors want to geographically know and are comfortable in some places and not some places. So very quickly, where is your headquarters? Where are you selling your product? Where is your dream to sell the product? And also a little bit of why. When is this on piece of paper right now? Is this product ready to go? Like when? What is the timeline? Can I get it tomorrow, 1 year, 5 years? When? Because many people forget to talk about that, and after find out that, oh, this was, still a prototype phase, that it still is not got all the kinks worked out, that it's not ready yet. So it's important to actually focus on that. And as I talked about the why, as to what problem are you solving? How are you making people's life better? Why will they want this? And then how? That is a business plan part of it. How? And that usually is for after. The 5 W's are usually what you can do in, hopefully under 5 minutes, because you lose people's attention after that. But once the other person on the other side asks you a little bit more, that's how you get into the how. How do you plan to take on the world and, accomplish world domination with your product and service? And you, once again, don't need to get into your 10-page business plan, but you do need to keep it high level and get into those details often. And then when it comes separately on pitching yourself, most of that has to be personal. You have to inform somebody and connect with the person in front of you. Hopefully you've done your research and find out what is important to them, maybe where they're from, what their experience, what their background, what their life is about, where you can connect with them. But pitching yourself always has to be pitching like you're pitching a product, in the fact that it is a sales tool. Whether you're pitching yourself to a customer, whether you're pitching yourself to get a job, your career, your education, whatever it might be, all of us all the time are selling. And therefore, we should do it consciously. We should also do it with a lot of practice. Speak to yourself in the mirror. Do it in front of your family. Do it in front of your dog. Like, do it more and more. And the more you do it, the more perfect and concise it will be. And so I think that most people believe that, only extroverts can pitch, only extroverts can sell. Absolutely not the case. It's just that they practice a little bit more.
Mm-hmm. And it's funny, as you were talking there, in the back of my mind, I was going through the video that we opened with and ticking off how all of those components were covered within that video itself. It talked about you, who you are, your product, its placement, everything. It was all covered in there in a nice pitch, just as a video in and of itself. One of the questions that I wanted to ask around that, though, is overcoming the concept of selling. As you say, everything is selling in its own way, but people sometimes think of selling as being like a bad word. So what sort of tips do you give people to just kind of reconcile that it's okay, selling is not a bad thing?
It's not a bad thing. Everybody wants to hear from you. Everybody wants to know how you can help them not only solve their problems, but make their lives better and easier. And therefore, it can be subtle selling, but we are being sold to all the time. And therefore, it is important to do it and understand that that is how you move the needle in your business. That is how you inform people. That is how people go viral, whatever that might mean to you. But it also is how you share what is personal to you. And you can do it in a variety of different ways. I think it's very naive to think that people will come to you and discover and ask you all the questions. We all don't have that amount of time on our hands anymore. So you do have to separate yourself, and you have to also tell your story. You can think of it as marketing. You can think of it as a variety of other ways. You can think of it as branding. You can think of it as even recruitment if you want. You can use many different words for it, but it is selling in the end of the day. And I think that many people who are uncomfortable with the fact that they need to talk about themselves, then talk about your product, talk about the company, talk about the why you are doing what you are doing. And so I think that whatever in your mind reconciles whatever the word you use is, it is in the end of the day a way to get yourself out there. And you will also benefit from many other different things, not only the financial side of it. You will meet some really interesting, cool people. You will have some experiences in different places, and have opportunities, maybe not tomorrow, but in years to come, often, that you have planted those seeds of, and that sales pitch many years before often. And that isn't also a way to evolve your product and your business and yourself. You can only get constructive feedback once you actually open yourself up to others and are open to the fact that you're going to sell them, and they will give you feedback, good and bad, and also good with paying for your product and bad by not. So it is a way for us to really understand our audiences, our customers, our clients, but the world around us. And in a lot of cases, our competitors too.
Mm-hmm. You mentioned mentorship earlier in one of your answers, and I want to kind of tease a little bit more out on that one, because many of our participants on the call today are new to entrepreneurship and maybe even new to Canada. In your experience, how can mentorship help someone in a new situation, whether it be entrepreneurial or just a new life situation? What can it not do as well? We expect a lot out of mentors, and the mentorship, there's a lot of talk about it these days, but sometimes there's limits as to what a mentorship relationship can be as well. So, should people who are new to Canada, should they offer to be mentors themselves in order to help people understand diversity and those pieces? How has mentorship worked most effectively in your experience? Could you share a little about that?
Yeah, I'm a big advocate of mentorship, and I'll quickly share my first kind of approach into it, other than my parents, as I mentioned before, who I truly believe are not only my mentors, but my supporters, and they come hand in hand, mentors and supporters and allies also. And so when we were starting and I had a customer and my father, I knew what products I wanted. I need somebody to make them now. Everybody in Canada, all the distilleries didn't even return my phone call, return my email, my snail mail letter. I showed up at many of them also. Nobody would talk to me. So what do you do when nobody in Canada talks to you? Well, you decide to go down south. And so I did a lot of research, and I looked at a lot of distillers in the US that could make my vodka, whiskey, rum, gin, Irish cream, tequila, etc. And so I had a couple that were on the hook. And as I was researching, I found a distillers conference that was happening in Texas. And I thought, oh my goodness, this is how I am going to not only learn about my industry, I'm going to meet everybody in one room. I'm going to go to Texas. We started with about $10,000 in our bank account. And that was savings that I had. My brother was not a saver, still is not. And the proceeds of a car that I sold that was gifted to me at 16. So 10 grand was all we started with. No loans, no banks would give me a loan, no investors. It was $10,000 and that was it. And I did a spreadsheet, as I do for everything in my life, to make the decision to go. And I discovered it was going to cost about $4 grand for me to go. Flights, register for the conference, etc. So I decided I was not going to take my brother to the conference. That was going to cost an extra about $1,500 because I was, in charge of the purse strings then and now. And I decided on the way down to come up with that pitch. And so I came up with a pitch. There was no such thing as Dragon's Den or its many other versions around the world. Mine was very long. It was well over 5 minutes, but I didn't know any better. And so my idea was that at this conference, because I didn't know anybody, what I was going to do was give this pitch out to everybody that made eye contact with me, everybody that I met. And at the end was my ask, which was going to be, would you be my supplier? And I gave it out the first day of the 3-day conference. I gave it out 21 times. Nobody at the end seemed interested. Nobody asked, let's talk more. But that didn't deter me. I kept going. The next day, after the morning session, I was having breakfast and I gave my pitch to the gentleman sitting beside me. He really wasn't listening, but I kept going. And at the end, when the next session was about to start, I got my spidey senses and my gut going, kind of all the alarms going off, saying that this guy is somebody that you need to spend a couple more minutes with. Didn't know more than his name on his name badge. There was no smartphones at the time in 1999 for me to discover who Max was. But I decided to listen to my gut, as I do all the time. And I was going to stay put. I needed to do some research on who he was. So I called my brother. I went to the hallway, called him, and I said, go to a computer and find out who Max was. And I discovered Max owned the largest owned family distillery in the United States. And so, yes, not only would he be a great supplier, but he would be great just to have in my corner. And so I followed him around the rest of the entire day, trying to get 15 more minutes with him. And at the end of the day, he came up to me and said, I noticed you've been stalking me. And I was like, not stalking you, but I need a couple more minutes of your time for my pitch. And so he said, okay, let's have a drink together. 15 minutes is all you get. And so, I gave him my pitch again. He had a drink. I wasn't old enough technically to have a drink in the United States. But after the pitch, he didn't really understand much of what I said, but understood my passion and said that he wanted to be on my team. And as I was going home the next day, I really thought about, not only because I spent the third day asking everybody in the room about Max, about his distillery, about his products, and they all had different, but really great things to say about him. And I thought, I need Max on my side, not only to learn from, but I need his brain to pick. I need to understand not only has he built this family business, but how he is world-class and how everybody else, even his competitors in this room, admire him still, even though they're competing with him. And so on the way back home, I decided that with what money I had left, I was going to every quarter show up to Max's place because I didn't have his contact info. And also I was scared that he was going to say no. So I decided that I was going to do it a little bit differently. And so I would show up every single quarter. And for the first 5 quarters, I showed up to Kentucky. I did not actually even see him, never mind meet him. But I learned a lot about my products that were coming from his facilities. I learned a lot about the people and the team members that he employed. But on the 5th time, I got to meet him. Once again, he was walking by and I kind of corralled him. And I asked him a couple questions. I had a year and a bit to come up with these questions. And then I said at the end, because he had to go, I said, you know what, I'll see you next quarter. And he said, what? And I said, I show up here every quarter hoping to get 15 minutes with you. And he said, okay, we'll put it in the books for the next time you're here. And while those 15 minutes turned into 20, turned into 30, turned into, a lifelong, not only relationship, but a amazing mentor-mentee relationship to begin with, and then a friendship. And more than a couple of years ago, I said to Max, you are one of the greatest mentors that I've ever had in my career, because you never treated me like a customer, like a young person, because, he was the age of my father, quite a bit older than me. But you always treated me as an equal. And he said, I was never your mentor. And I thought to myself, that is one of the best mentor-mentee relationships, that the mentor doesn't even know that is what he's providing. And then he told me on the flip side, I've learned a lot from you, not only about Canadians, but about, what else is going on in our industry, because you're a fighter. And I thought to myself, okay, this is the best relationship because there is a give and there is a take. And so I truly believe that mentorship is a brain to pick, an ear to listen, and a push in the right direction. Having the right mentors in your personal life and your professional life. I also do believe that they should be separate and different. Not everybody believes that, but I do. Because I do believe that we are always looking for goals and should set goals that are different in your personal life and in your professional life and in your business. And sometimes those can intertwine, but not always. And so, mentors, they can definitely provide and so that growth for you in your professional and support you with that. Sometimes with understanding your budgeting, your financials, they can also serve as a source of knowledge. Somebody who has been there, done that. Can also help you not make the same mistakes that they do and have. That is something definitely that I do for a lot of young women, is help them not make the same mistakes that I did. Hopefully make new mistakes, but not the same ones. Also help them, mentors can help you set realistic goals, because a lot of us goals are aspirational, absolutely, but they need to be realistic to be accomplished. And so they can help you actually make those goals, not only help them put them on paper, but help you come up with a plan to reach them. They can definitely help you maintain accountability and give you that constructive criticism and feedback. Accountability when setting those goals is also important, to look back at them and say, did I do what I thought I would do in the amount of time? Have I done it early? Did I set them too big, too lofty? Like where those goals are, but also be accountable to them. They also, and I think this is what most people believe them to do, can help you network, can help you build those connections, and encourage you to reach out even cold, and how to do that. There are a lot of tools now that can help you do that, whether it be something like LinkedIn, whether it can be, other groups and organizations such as yours, but they can absolutely help you do that. And the flip side of that, being a mentor, what it can do for you, especially, yes, new Canadians, no matter who you are. A lot of people wonder, well, what do I have to offer? You have a lot to offer. You have a different perspective to offer, a mentor. And I love being a mentee and or a mentor and learning from, especially a mentee, because usually they're in a different industry. They have a different life experience. They have different friends, different family, and often in a different age group, like younger than I. And so they teach me a lot too. They also help me reflect on not only my decisions, but a lot of my own experiences. And also they help you, mentors, not only with your leadership skills, but also put it down on paper as to why you believe what you believe. And I think that we don't often get those reflective time anymore than we used to, whether that be, in journaling or a lot of different other ways that we used to be able to reflect as entrepreneurs. And so it also gives you a perspective as an entrepreneur as to maybe what your team members, what your customers, what your clients are thinking. And so it can help you as in a lot of different ways when you yourself are a mentor that you might not actually believe. Also, what it might not do. Well, let's talk about that. What it might not do is give you funding, give you a check. Many people believe that mentors are also there as investors. Maybe, but you shouldn't go in thinking that that is what it will not only guarantee, but it is something that they can provide. Money is not always something that mentors can give you access to. They might give you some ideas how to write, a pitch or a loan application, but they can't always provide you with that funding. Also, they aren't going to run your company. They're going to meet you, hopefully 3 or 4 times a year. You shouldn't ask for too much more than that. But they aren't going to be your president. They aren't going to be the leader of your company. And I think that sometimes people think that they're going to have all the answers. No, they're going to be a guidance, and hopefully they'll be a friend after that, but they aren't going to be the ones who are leading your company either.
No, that's great advice. That's great to understand about the relationship. And I love the fact as well that you mentioned about, sometimes some of your greatest mentors can be people that in a strictly business sense would be viewed as a competitor. They're often very open to helping and assisting because they understand there's more than enough to go around, and they can identify with the challenges that you're having most easily. I know of a couple of mentors and mentee relationships that exist, and people look and they go, I can't believe they're working together. They're competitors, but they're actually some of the best relationships that we have that we've helped facilitate. So it is a very important point.
It absolutely is. And you learn best practices from each other. You also are able to collaborate. Listen, everybody is good at different things. And so you're able to understand and identify that and then both be successful at something often together. Also, one thing it does do is help you have a realization. Listen, all of us as small business owners are working against the big conglomerates. And so if we can help each other and keep businesses in our community, pay taxes in our community, help our communities out, rather than those big organizations that send money, a lot of other places than not in this country, tax shelters, etc., that do not help our communities. I would anytime rather help breweries pop up in my neighborhood than I would help collaborate or help sell another case of beer for an old Molson and Labatt. And I think that most entrepreneurs will tell you the same thing.
Mm-hmm. No, thank you. The next question I have to ask, just because it's come up a lot about pricing of products, and you've been really great about giving us lots of tidbits. So I'm going to shift this question a little bit and just ask, what are your basics? If somebody is pricing a product, what are the basics that they need to be considering?
Yeah, I think first and foremost, you have to know your costs. You have to know your input costs. And not only what the exact ingredients are, you have to know your overhead expenses. Many people forget that they have to, pay for electricity, pay for an office, pay for, supplies for not only to run their business, paper, electricity, like a lot of other things. So what are not only your input costs as far as your ingredients, but your overhead costs? And then you have to know how much you need to survive, what you need to get out of this business. You need to build that in to pay yourself. Too many entrepreneurs do not pay themselves. They think they're going to next year, the year after that. But you too need to put food on your own table, and you too need to take that money and pay yourself first. So when coming up with what your cost of goods is, you have to include all of that first. And then you need to know your costs, and then you have to build in a margin, and a margin that can give you room, whether it be, things that you won't expect, such as inflation, such as increased taxes, such as a pandemic, and have kind of a comfort level there to understand that you need a margin that is healthy, but that also can give you some room. So you can do specials, you can do limited time offers, you can do sales, you can experiment a little bit. And so have a margin that is in line with maybe your competitors in your industry, but also it gives you some wiggle room too, to be flexible when unexpected costs come through the door, and that it won't break you, and that you can hold it over for a couple quarters. And so I think that it's important to look at that every quarter too. And it is important to understand that what others in your industry are charging. No, very, very few companies start out with a premium or super premium pricing model. Listen, we all would love to get, 3 digits and be in that super premium pricing model, but that happens over time, and it happens with a big marketing budget, which most small businesses and new entrepreneurs do not have. So you have to be able to make sure that you're not losing money, and that you are valuing your product competitively within your set of competitors. It's important to also identify who your competitors are. It is not those big companies. It is usually the other small ones around you. It is usually in your community. It is somebody maybe in that target price point. And so it's important to understand who you're competing with. And that can be a part of your sales pitch sometimes too. Many people do start in that discount to kind of medium, and that is often where you float and where you stay. And that's okay. I think that it's important to understand that then volume is your friend, and you can be profitable and have a big business and make pretty good money in different segments of the business, but you got to make sure you're covering your expenses and paying yourself.
Perfect. And I completely agree. Paying yourself, that is a huge piece, because none of us can do it without being able to support ourselves.
Yeah, and it's not a charity. A business is not a charity. You can have a social component to it, but as I say, you can't have a social enterprise without the enterprise making money. You can't help anybody else, whether it be charity, whether it help your employees, whether it help your family, if you're not making any money.
Definitely. So I'm just going to pause for a moment now, because I do want to let everyone know that I just have one more question, and then we are going to have an opportunity to take a few questions from our participants. So if you would like to ask a question, please put it in either the chat or the Q&A. It is being moderated, and a couple of those questions will be pushed forward in a few moments so that we can answer some from our audience. But in the meantime, my final question is building a little bit on what we've already talked about, and you have covered it. Groups like the ones I represent, NLO, the Centre for Women in Business in Nova Scotia, the Women in Business New Brunswick group, and the Prince Edward Island Business Women's Association, we're here to help women entrepreneurs every day. Day in, day out, that's what we do. We provide educational services, we provide networking opportunities, we provide information about access to funding. We cover the gamut. So from a networking point of view, I think we're the place to start, quite honestly. And in Alberta, of course, it's the Alberta Business Women's Association, which I'm sure you're aware of, AWE. There's a place to go all across Canada. We have locations where people can help. But other than that, when you're starting out and you're trying to figure out how to build your networks, how to build your community, the people that you can turn to, that can be a very daunting process. So do you have any hints, tips, things that you did early on, other than hopping on a plane and going to a conference, to really broaden your networks and make sure that you're meeting and getting to know the people that you need to be successful?
Well, I think it's much easier now than it was when I started. And I think for a couple of reasons. One, social media. I think there's some amazing Facebook groups, LinkedIn groups that are for like-minded individuals that can help you explore. Also, just doing basic searches and understanding what is available and who is around you. And also you have to physically get out there. You have to take the time and go out, go in the evenings, go on the weekends. You got to go and meet the people, and you got to go with business cards in hand. Yes, you do. And you got to go with a mission in mind, to meet people, to understand who they are, what they do, and maybe afterwards follow up with those people too, first with an email as soon as you can, and then have a drink, have a coffee, whatever it might be. But you do have to put the time in. Unfortunately, many people do think that they can get a lot out of and network and make connections and relationships without putting the time in. Listen, you don't know what will be fruitful. You don't know which conferences are amazing and they're back in full force. So conferences are amazing. You don't know what you're going to gain from it as far as knowledge or meeting new people if you don't go. And so I think that also you can't expect everything from just one. It is something that you have to do continuously. I still do it all the time. It's another way also to learn, to volunteer on different boards in your community associations, at even your local schools, where your kids go. There's a lot of places to put your skills to use and to meet like-minded individuals. But mostly, I would say you need to seek the help and then take it. You need to have the courage to put yourself out there. And having courage doesn't mean that you don't get afraid. It just means that you are willing to put yourself out there and be open to meeting new people, to having new opportunities, to also having a good database of understanding where and what, when needed, you can reach out to somebody. And so I would say, that it's important for women because we're not always great at taking help when it's offered. And so I think that it is important as you seek that help and as you network, that you actually follow through. Many of us also, and I get it, have a lot of other responsibilities in life, but that follow through is important to build those connections. And also have a hit list in a positive way. I mean, have a list of people that you want to meet, that you want to learn from. Have some goals around that too. Maybe people that you read about, maybe people that you've heard about. But you do need to have some people on your list that you admire and that you want to learn from. I do all the time, and they're changing. And sometimes they impress me, and sometimes not when I actually get to meet them. But it is a part of learning and networking. Nobody does it alone. Also understand that nobody builds a business, nobody raises a family, nobody does it alone. And so therefore it is important to put yourself out there.
Definitely. Okay, well, thank you. And now I'm going to.
Oh, you muted yourself, Jennifer.
You muted yourself there, Jennifer.
Now, how did I manage that? I moved I tried to go into the Q&A and I muted myself instead. So Susan, did you have some questions for us?
Oh, do we ever? So people want to know, what are your success habits, Manjit?
Yeah, there's a fair number, and I think that they often change too based on what's going on in my life. But one thing I've always done is goal setting. I truly believe that is important. And I always look at those goals before I go to bed. I think it's important that when you go to bed, you often have not only what you're ready to accomplish the next day, but you have some goals personally and professionally. Also, every single day, I definitely start by accomplishing 3 big tasks first thing in the morning before all the distractions of life, my business, my kids, my family, everything else comes at me. So it's a great way to start a day too. Accomplish 3 big things in the morning while the world is still a bit quiet around you. Also, I will say, I think it's important that, as I said before, people might not believe it, but I definitely, in a lot of ways, I'm an introvert. And so I am always taking risks. I am always trying new things. I am learning as I go, asking lots of questions, giving my experiences and my opinions, but also really trying new things. And I think that that is what makes not only life exciting, but it also gives you a lot of insight into yourself. And you also can discover in a lot of different ways new opportunities for your business through that too. Staying in a bubble doesn't help anybody, because as our businesses, even when you look back, your business, your product, your service should not look the same 2 years later, 5 years later, 10 years later. It should always be evolving, and it always should be evolving in different ways based on your customers, your clients, and all the factors around you, including your competitors. And so, many over COVID, we heard the word pivot a lot. And I think that that is something that you should be continuously doing, not just when a pandemic hits.
Thank you.
Yeah. There's a lot of questions around EDI. So about how you do EDI in your business, and how can we as women entrepreneurs support more women of color and EDI generally to being successful?
I think first and foremost, you have to identify with those decision makers in your organization as to why not only it's important for the organization and to include everybody at the table, but also how it can help the bottom line. There's lots of research, lots of facts that at the end of the day, different experiences and different people, diversity of not only age, gender, thought, education, geographical location, can help a business and help a business at its bottom line. And so it's not only the right thing to do, it's the right thing to do for your business. And so I think that there has to be acknowledgement of that. And then I am a true believer of targets. Listen, I think that everybody can talk, but you only move the needle when you have some KPIs, when you have some metrics, when you have some targets, and they should start absolutely realistic and aspirational. But then they should, as you reach them, which hopefully you do sooner than you set it for, you're able to expand that definition. And I think that it is important for everybody to understand and go in with an open mind to understand that what somebody else's experience can bring to the table. And and there are different ways of working. I think that that is also important to understand that what a mother, what a disabled person, what a person from maybe a different rural area can bring as far as perspective, but as expertise to your group and your company that you didn't necessarily have before. Because let's face it, I'm born and raised in Calgary. I went to school with a lot of the same people around me. I think we all kind of think the same. We might even have different degrees in education, but we all kind of think the same. When you bring somebody not only from a different country, but from a geographical space, from a different age category, they bring a lot to the table. You may not always agree. Don't think that it'll be easy, but it will expand even your own thinking and give you some food for thought and some healthy debate, which is how great decisions are made.
Thank you. I think we have time for one more. Susan?
Oh, there's so many. So your audience wants to know, what was your biggest entrepreneurial mistake and what did you learn from it?
Oh, one day I will write a big book of all my failures and mistakes. So somebody a while ago asked me that at a keynote, asked me, so how many products have failed of yours? And I was like, oh man, a lot. I've never counted. And I went back and asked my CFO, can you do some math backwards for us? And I discovered for every product we have on the shelf, which is about 120 around the world in 16 countries, we have on average 4 that didn't make it, that failed, definition of failed. We put in the marketing money. We did the research. We came up with a product. It had its own design. It was a product on a shelf with all the backing behind it. And it failed, many of them for different reasons. But at the end of the day, they don't exist anymore. And so, not only do we learn from some of those that, okay, never again, and or wrong time, wrong price sometimes too. There's a lot of factors that go into making a product successful. But I will say the one that sticks with me the most is my first entrance into the wine market about 10 years ago. I was so excited. And I took on this wine project. I don't usually do new product development, but I was really excited. Everything was going well with beer and spirits. And I thought, well, we already do and have a lot of the, retailers as customers. Let's bring wines in. So I traveled the world. It was fun. And we came up with 8 different wines that we were going to bring from around the world. We came up with some really weird names because that's, when all those weird names were coming up for like Fat Tire and, Bastard this and all that weird stuff. And so we came out, we had an amazing launch. And amazing because we sold the first run, but nobody came back to buy it again. And many retailers sent the product back. It sat on shelves for way too long. My basement is full of old wine, reminding me that not everything I do is successful. And it was one of those things that when I looked back on it, I discovered all the mistakes that we made. And sometimes we put the cart in front of the horse. And I think that sometimes also when you've had some success in a particular category or product, you think that everything else you're going to do is going to hit it on the mark. And you sometimes miss those important steps. And for example, in the wine launch on our first one, we didn't do a great job of actually making sure that the wine itself, what was in the bottle, what is on trend and what people were drinking. We also didn't factor in pricing strategy as great as we should have. We thought it was worth more than it was. And we also didn't have great product information as to where a lot of the wine sold. We're a volume company. And so there was a lot of things that got missed along the way in our excitement just to get out of line. And so I think that, that is definitely something that sticks with me. And I often when I talk about the learnings, it has a big expense and a cost to it because it almost sunk our company because of how much we put into it. There was a lot of team member fatigue, and there was a lot of individuals who were really a part of that, that were pretty devastated after the fact when it was such a big public failure, especially in Western Canada. And so I think that, we, thank goodness, as a company, we're able to recover after a couple of years financially from it. But also we learned that we would never launch 8 products again at one time. And all the things we would never do again. But one day I will write a book on a lot of the other failures that I've had as investments also. But definitely, I think that that's what makes a full life, is that you have some ups and you have some downs.
Thank you so much, Manjit. I just want to mention to everyone that we are about to conclude Manjit's portion of the presentation here today, but please stick around. We have 4 panelists who are going to be joining us, talking to us about their entrepreneurial journey to date, starting out, and the learnings and their participation with the Atlantic Canadian Women in Growth Partnership Project. So I encourage all of you to stick around and to hear from them as well as we continue this journey. But as we wrap things up with Manjit, I just have one more very quick question, and that is, after all the great advice and information that you've given us here today, what is that one piece of advice? What is that one thing that you would tell anyone who wants to start their business that they need to hold fast to?
Go for it. Stop researching. Stop making all the plans. Go for it. You got to start somewhere. And every successful entrepreneur starts somewhere. It's not where they imagine it, but you got to start somewhere. And I would say, listen, there is no elevator to success. We all take the stairs. So start.
Excellent. Thank you so much. So you heard it. Go for it. That's what we're all going to do here today. Thank you so much for joining us, Manjit. I very much appreciate your participation in our event.
Thank you, Jennifer.
So at this point in time now, we're going to switch gears. We're going to take a few moments and have our panelists join us on screen. And we are going to move into the second half of our presentation. So you'll give us a couple seconds to do this switch over.
Yeah, so I'm just, we'll just switch over there now.
Okay. And while we're getting everyone on screen, I'll just take a few moments to thank our 4 participants here this afternoon and to tell you a little bit more about the Atlantic Canadian Women in Growth Partnership Project. Throughout the last 4 years, this came about as a part of the Women's Entrepreneurship Strategy, which is a federal government strategy to enhance participation of women and underrepresented groups in the entrepreneurship ecosystem. So, you know, NLO was the lead on this project, and we had our 4 partners. All of us work very closely together throughout Atlantic Canada, and that is the Business Women's Association of Prince Edward Island, the Women in Business New Brunswick group, as well as the Center for Women in Business out of Mount St. Vincent University, and of course the Newfoundland and Labrador Organization of Women Entrepreneurs. As we went through this process with this project, we were looking really at underrepresented groups. We were looking at opportunities where we could take a lot of the programs that we regularly offer, but really focus in and really adapt them and change them and alter them to ensure that they're accessible to all audiences. So that's what the last 4 years have been about. And joining me now here on screen are 3 or 4. We're waiting for Christina to turn on her camera, but we have 4 entrepreneurs who've been a part of this journey with us through the Atlantic Canada Women in Growth Partnership Project. They've participated, thank you so much, Christina. They've participated in many of our programs throughout this journey and have graciously offered to chat with us here today about their experiences, both in their own businesses and starting their businesses and growing their businesses, as well as their interactions with the business women's associations that they've been involved with. So I'm going to start by introducing Jenna White. Welcome, Jenna. Jenna started her business with a small farmers market booth, and within 3 years grew it into a multifaceted business, including a restaurant, an on-site bakery, catering, food processing, and more. She has recently started a consulting business specializing in Indigenous cuisines and tourism, and started A Taste of the Atlantic, a festival celebrating Indigenous cuisine and culture. She is driven by sharing culture, lifting others, and hopefully inspiring her children and others to do the same. So welcome, Jenna. Next, we have Sarah Benito O'Brien. Sarah is Chef CEO of Sarah Benito O'Brien's Hand Pie Company. Did I say that right? The Hand Pie Company? In Albany, Prince Edward Island, where the culinary trained team manufactures local ingredient savory hand pies for distribution across the province. The Hand Pie Company has an on-site retail shop that operates year-round and features both frozen take and bake hand pies as well as hot, ready-to-eat hand pies. In operation since 2017, having seen some interesting business years in the mix, tell me about it. Sarah and her team are planning a huge expansion project that will mean federal licensing and maritime distribution by 2024. So welcome, Sarah. We're looking forward to hearing all about that.
Thank you very much.
From Newfoundland and Labrador, we have Christina Adamova. Born and raised in Prague, she attended agricultural landscaping school for 5 years, where she learned from some of Europe's most accomplished floral designers and landscapers. Her passion is for planting gardens that led her to the art of fresh floral design. She simply loves to do that. And as someone who has received some bouquets that have been designed by Christina, I can tell you they are stunning. Welcome, Christina.
Thank you for having me.
And from Nova Scotia, we have Joyce Adom. Did I pronounce that correctly, Joyce?
Yes.
Thank you. So Joyce Adom is the owner of Simply Go Natural Cosmetics, Inc., an organic hair and skincare manufacturing company in Nova Scotia. Joyce started selling her products at the local farmers market in Halifax in 2016. After being featured on several TV shows, the demand for her product grew. After a lot of hard work and determination, her products are now available in 24 Sobeys stores across Atlantic Canada, on Amazon, local stores in Halifax, and online at simplygonatural.com. So welcome, Joyce.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
So Again, we are delighted to have this opportunity to chat with 4 individuals who are at various stages in their business growth. I would say early to mid growth in terms of the life cycle of their entrepreneurial pursuits, and have an opportunity to chat a little bit about the programs that you've enjoyed as you've been working along the way, the supports you've received. We're going to talk a little bit about many of the themes that we addressed when we were chatting with Manjit, and really hear from your perspective, from a local perspective in Atlantic Canada, how you've dealt with your successes, how you've managed your challenges, and where you have gone for the support that you have needed. So the first thing that I'm going to do is ask you all to introduce your entrepreneurial journey to others. And what I mean by that is, tell us a little bit about one, significant aha moment where you knew you were going to be successful, that you knew this path that you were on was the right one. And I'm going to start by asking Joyce to answer this question.
For me, the path, it has never been that clear, but I had a conviction in my heart that I'm going to lead somewhere. But the first aha moment was the very beginning of my journey, when the product was not even complete wasn't on the shelf at any place, and never even set a foot in a farmer's market. And I sent some of the product to one of my in-laws in the state, in US, and she looked at the product, she got the product, and I called to check if she got the product and if she liked it. And she was like, wow, Joyce, you are building $1 million business in your home. I'm so proud of you. And that stuck with me. So since then, I've been working with that.
That's great. So again, you surrounded yourself with that positive voice, the ones that believe in you, and it went from there. Mm-hmm. Thank you. How about you, Sarah? What was your aha moment?
I feel like there's always several along the way. Mine, I have awesome notes here, so I'll try to stay on point for you. But mine was finding entrepreneurship in general, realizing that I am not the best employee, because when I see something wrong where I'm working, I just want to fix it. I want to constantly be evolving my work environment. So once I discovered entrepreneurship and all of the joys that come with that, I was like, I just wish that it was a high school course when I was in high school, being like, you need 800 fires on the go at all times, you might be an entrepreneur. So finding that was really the big aha moment. And then, finding the world of savory hand pies has been a whole other trip.
Thank you. And how about you, Christina?
I would say for me, it was when customers came back. And let's not forget, I was selling my bouquets out of a basement of my old house. So a hard place to find, really not a retail as where I'm now. People came back, they loved it. They told me they last long, the bouquets are unique, and they love the natural accents that I forged for. That there's in every bouquet, there is a piece of Newfoundland from the nature. That makes it unique. And there's so much to get out here in the nature. So repeat customers, I landed a contract with the Government House on Military Road for Christmas decor, then $1,000 wedding. So out of my basement, that gave me the confidence that the product is good enough to trust some of the skills, even though the location was not that great. Left hand of the Governor Judy Foote came to my basement to, greet me and give me some support and some charity support I was doing. That would say that all those things were helping to build the confidence, but yeah.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. And Jenna, do you have an aha moment to share?
I don't know that I've had very many aha moments yet. I'm still very new to my entrepreneurial journey. If I did have one, I would have to say it would be similar to Sarah, and that was finding the fact that I did want to start something of my own. I guess we're going on 6 years now. I lost a big chunk of my eyesight and I became legally blind. And I had a little pity party for a while, like a lot of people would. But for me, I guess my aha moment was I had the opportunity to make life work for me. And that's kind of how I've built my business, is to make it work for me. So for my aha moment, as I guess I get to control my own life. And that wasn't always apparent for me.
Yep. Definitely. Okay, so it's products that we're passionate about. Check. We've got that one. The need to be constantly on the go and stimulated seems to be a need for an entrepreneur. So we've got that check. We have a connection to the land and to people and positive influences around us, and that need. We've had that one, so that's a check. I think we've covered off a lot of the key things that Manjit covered in her presentation as well, in terms of strategies for success. So we're definitely on the right path here. Now I'm going to ask you a little bit, what sort of programming have you participated in when it comes to the women's entrepreneurship organizations in your region? Because I think that would be a really interesting question for people who are participating, to understand the kinds of supports that are out there, because often they don't really know. Like, they know that organizations exist that can help them, like NLO, like PWA, like the Center, like the Women's Initiative in New Brunswick, but they don't necessarily understand or translate that to the type of services that they could provide. So if you could tell me a little bit about, what are some of the programs that you were involved in, and, did they help you? How did they help you? What are some of the success stories that came out of that? And I'm actually going to ask Christina to answer that one first.
So NLO was with me for the day one, helped me build, business plan. And Lindsay Mercer, big shout out to her, me like having a newborn baby attached to my body and writing a 40-page business plan. She got me through that. Not having a retail and knowing I have to sell online, moving women online was one of your programs where Nicole Bruce and Bullseye Branding helped us to build website. So finally, I was not relying only on social media, Facebook, Instagram. You know how it goes. You don't own that platform. They can shut you down. And if you don't have a website, you're basically starting from zero. So that was a fantastic program. And moving women online is where I also made some friends, which are, making friends. They're here for you when you're in some kind of trouble, which always happens. And they get you back. Women are, that way, and there's a lot of them. So Nicole Bruce, Bullseye Branding, moving women online. Self-employment program, SEO, that was another one. Tech NL also helped me with software when I was, writing my orders on a piece of cardboard and sending asking for e-transfers. That was my way of starting the payments. Very immature now. Like, I have Square, I have Shopify, I have a good website that Bullseye Branding built for me new. I had a new website built because I applied for a grant from Smart Business Development Program. So I'm a single mom entrepreneur, recently left an abusive partner. I didn't have the money, so they helped me out. So NLO and lots out there, just take it, get some help to give you the boost, because money are tight, and I'm always cautious about my spending. And that's where it saved me when I was it saved me financially, being very thrifty.
Thank you, Christina. Yes, no, definitely. And the fact that you made friends and made those contacts and everything, I think there's no dollar value that you can place on that. No. How about you, Jenna?
So I originally, when I had talked to Women in Business New Brunswick, when I was first starting out, there wasn't a whole lot of programs. And then when the pandemic hit, there were a lot more programs that became available. So which kind of worked out well for me, because I had that opportunity to test the viability of my business at the farmers market. So when I went for those applications and grants with Women in Business, I had something to back up my idea. So that was great. I was also part of moving women online. So that helped facilitate my very first website, which was a huge opportunity for me, to the point that I had to shut the ordering system down because I didn't have enough people to keep up. So
what a nice problem to have.
yes, it's great. They also were able to help. I applied for another grant that allowed me to have some of my baking mixes developed at Canada's Smartest Kitchen, which was very instrumental on me getting listed at Sobeys. So having those opportunities, not only did they help me set up for success, but it also showed someone else seeing value in my business, which really helped me progress my business to the point it is now, where I have a brick and mortar. Because when they started helping me, I was still at the farmer's market and was working out of my licensed home kitchen, and it was a very different situation than I'm in now. So for me, those were really, really great. But we also here in New Brunswick, I'm not sure how it was in the other provinces, but they actually put together a program just for Indigenous women entrepreneurs. And Natasha Mitchell-Martin is, she's basically a huge cheerleader for us, and she's created another website. So Women in Business New Brunswick has been not only amazing at helping me progress my business, but they've also been a huge cheerleader and found different ways to create visibility for women here. So if you have an opportunity to get involved with the one in your province, I strongly suggest it, because not only does it give you tools, but it really helps you create a strong network as well.
No, the website that you're referencing is the ACWGP
It is.
site. That is a marketing platform for Indigenous women artisans and service providers. It's basically a landing page where people can come and find out about services that are offered. In Newfoundland and Labrador, we also have a similar site. Ours is called Women of the Land, Newfoundland and Labrador, and it is also a marketing landing page for Indigenous artisans and service providers. So. And I know that we are in the process of creating linkages in the other provinces as well to ensure that we have that outreach. So thank you for mentioning that, Jenna. Joyce, how about you?
Yes, for me, it would be this program. It wasn't directly linked. It was indirectly. Okay, I will say this. Craft Alliance, which is a craft association in Atlantic Canada for those who make craft, and was a member, and they had a program called Business Growth Mastermind for entrepreneurs and for makers. And I didn't know that it was the Center for Women that was going to run it. So I happened to be at the Center for Women in Business in Nova Scotia, ran the program, and it was with Judith Richardson. And it was an amazing program. The mastermind really helped me with my mindset. At the time, it was during the pandemic. I was a mess mentally. Everything was a mess. My business was standstill. I just got out of, I just stopped working in February. I had my eye surgery in that February. No, it was in February. And then the world shut down in March 2020. And I stopped work because I wanted to focus on my business, and then the world shut down. So I was in a mess, and that that program helped me a lot, the mastermind, to gather myself, my thoughts, and put me in charge, put strategies, plans in charge for me to be able to scale up. And that is what prepared me to set up a workstation that became my manufacturing site, and helped me to prepare myself to scale up to be in Sobeys. It has been so helpful because, you know, your mindset is everything. And when your mindset is not in the right place, you can be everywhere. And the little things get you overwhelmed. the little things. And everything seems to be as if the whole world is on your shoulders because you are not organized and your mindset is not in the right place. So yes, that program was great. And another program was I think, let me see, I wrote it down here. The Blueprint for Success from the Center for Women in Business. They also helped me business plan, so many other things. And the best part of this program was the friendship or the relationship and the peer groups that you get to sit, talk, people on the same level with you doing similar things. And prior to that, I have been on my own doing things in my house, in my basement. I don't have anyone, no network, no one to talk to. All the things that you get overwhelmed with, no one understands. You feel like no one understands what you're going through. And all of a sudden you have groups where you are talking and you can see that people are going through the same thing as you. Some have been able to move ahead, even though they've been through that. They'll share their experiences with you, and some are on the same stage, it's the same level with you, looking for answers. And then you have someone that can guide you in the right direction. It's been amazing. It's been just amazing. Resources, in terms of resources, where to go for anything, because I found myself, again, very isolated, disconnected, looking for answers in the wrong place, being all over the place, and not really knowing what to do. So these courses really helped me to settle down, maybe set myself up myself and get my thoughts organized and then get things done. And since then, I've been very organized, and I know where to go for things. And then the advisors, or let's say Judith and the rest of them, Denise Williams was on the Blueprint for Success. These became more of my mentors, and if there's any opportunity anywhere, they will let me know. They will call me. They will say, Joyce, this is going on here. Are you interested? Oh, Joyce, why don't you want to do this? Why don't you look into this? So it has been very, very helpful. Yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
Thank you, Joyce. And how about you, Sarah? What's been your experience?
So my experience directly with PBWA, so the PEI Business Women's Association, was that I was a participant and the winner of their sensational summer pitch fest. It was super, super fun. It was one crunch day that was a lot like the Dragon's Den and Shark Tank, where there was some preliminary competition. You basically had to pitch your next big thing. What is your next step? Convince them that it was worth winning. Our judges panel was amazing from all the Atlantic provinces. People flew in for it. And I feel like this was just when some of the restrictions lifted. So being able to do the pitch without a mask, I did not hyperventilate in that. It was amazing. And yeah, I just got a chance to kind of talk about our expansion into another production facility that we can get federally licensed so that I can get in Sobeys like the rest of you. Yeah, so I won us $15,000. It's going to go towards making our staff kind of hangout room, staff lunchroom in the new facility an oasis. Really looking forward to that. So that's my experience directly with PBWA. But then there's a few other organizations on Prince Edward Island that are amazing for new entrepreneurs, especially in the food sector. We have the Food Island Partnership here that's been absolutely pivotal. I could talk for a few hours about what those folks have done for me. But then we have Skills PEI here that has the self-employed program that I think Joyce mentioned as well. It's really just, it's that safety net for your first year in business when you're probably not paying yourself. So you need to figure out how to cover your own bills, as well as the mentorship that comes along with that. It definitely got me through that first year of business 9 years ago.
Great, thank you. So the next question now, and you've set yourself up for it, Sarah, so you get to go first, because you know you made the comment about the next step in business, and then it's like, that's the next question, so here we are. But the next question for all of you is, what is your next step in business? What is your next big goal? So thinking about where you are now, reflecting on the journey to right now, and then looking forward. What's your next big goal? What's the pivotal point? And we're going to start with you, Sarah, because you set yourself up.
Amazing. That's why it helps to have this list right in front of me. So right now I'll give it a little bit of a backstory. We are in a renovated Scotiabank building in the absolute middle of nowhere, Prince Edward Island. We're lucky enough to only be about 7 minutes away from the Confederation Bridge, so we capture some really good tourist traffic. But we're really like a brick building in the middle of a bunch of farmers' fields. It is our current production facility and our only retail that we control. So when you come into our shop, there's all these glass windows. You can see hand pies being made. You can buy them hot or frozen on site. But out of this location, we can only distribute within our own province. So I have 12 current retailers across PEI, kind of tip to tip. There's a couple of hot service folks that run tap rooms. We have an amazing Pies and Pints program. But then everything else we make is sold in freezer sections. As you know, you take this frozen, delicious chef-made pie, you bake it up and enjoy it at home. That business has been booming like crazy. It's a great problem to have, but to be able to get federal certification, which is what we need to get into any large grocery retailer, or to sell a single pie across that bridge, even though we can see New Brunswick and parts of Nova Scotia, I can't sell a single pie there till we get this licensing, and that requires a huge amount of investment in the facility. So that's what we're building right now with a few government partners, but we'll have an 11,000 square foot production facility in Borden Carleton, which is only 5 minutes away from my house. Still also very rural, keeping rural jobs going. And most of our ingredients are sourced locally. Our flour still arrives to us like by the farmer that grows the wheat and mills it, and the bags are still warm when we get them. When we say we use local, it's not a joke. I have some great relationships with some local farmers. So yeah, that next step is really going through the federal licensing process, all the fun that is involved with that, and finding at least 10 more staff in time for the fall of this year.
Wow, so real growth trajectory. That's exciting.
Yes, ma'am.
How about you, Joyce? What is the next big step coming for you?
Well, as a manufacturing company, that I'm still in my basement, even though the production has increased. Well, the program I did has helped me to be able to manage my and with my own background has helped me to be able to manage my current resources quite efficiently, but things are growing and I'm outgrowing my space. So I do need to get out of here and get a bigger space. So I'm working with consultants to help me figure that one out. And I'm working on it's a process so that I'm going through it so that I can get my own manufacturing space to make the product to meet demands of different stores. I have bigger stores because Simply Go Natural Cosmetics came about simply because when I came to Canada, I needed some product, hair and skincare product that were natural and organic, but I couldn't find them in the big stores like Sobeys, Walmart, Superstore. I couldn't find them. And as an immigrant, I don't know the small stores. And so I struggled to find these. And then, which is the reason why Sobeys was a big thing for me when I go into Sobeys. And I'm targeting these stores. I want to be in the big stores where if you need anyone that pops in there will be able to have healthy alternative to care for their skin, for their child that have eczema that is struggling. They can just pick a natural product that doesn't need any special prescription that actually works, or your hair care. If you're struggling with hair growth, if you have hair loss, you can pick up a shampoo that is toxin free that actually works. Hair oil. So that is what I'm working on. And that means I need to target the big stores as well as the small stores. And I need that space to be able to do that. So that is my next big thing, to target the bigger stores, more stores, and a bigger production site. That is me.
That's two big steps on the horizon for you. And Jenna, how about you?
I actually have a few big projects on the go right now. We are opening a second breakfast restaurant here in town. It'll be at our local farmers market, the same one that I started with 2 small folding tables and $250 all of 4 years ago. So that's really cool because that's coming full circle. So I'm really excited about that. Also, I'd say 3/4 of our ingredients come from the farmers there already. So it's going to benefit all of us. So it's that's very exciting. Also, I get to put some more indigenous representation into that space. I get to decorate with my menu. So that's very exciting. I am also launching a coffee company next month. So that is very exciting. We'll be the first Indigenous coffee roasters on the East Coast. So that's super exciting. And our Taste of the Atlantic Festival has grown to 3 full days this coming August. So we have a lot on the go, and we'll have Indigenous chefs from all across the Atlantics this year. And we are also holding an intertribal powwow. So it's going to be a big year.
Sounds like a lot on the horizon. It's busy.
Yeah. I don't stop.
No, and that was a theme that we had there earlier. That's true. Christina.
So as I just made it through Valentine, that was a stormy 2nd year in a row for us florists here in St. John's. I am slowly getting to realize that I really need some staff for the production, because although I am a good designer, it is just so much. So I will show you my little shop, and I will tell you what is my goal, because it's so beautiful here. This will be quick. So this is my little shop. It's a little retail store, and I am hoping to hire someone to be able to stay open every day from 10 till 4, which right now I cannot do because I'm multitasking. I'm forging, packaging, delivering, all this. So I hope to have one staff to be actually open. And this is a catalog that I developed myself, and it's a sympathy catalog with a sympathy work. So a lot of florists will just buy images online, and they will use someone else's work in the portfolio. So this is quite unusual for florists to actually, build their own. So that's something that I hope to get out. And again, right now, I just cannot afford to pay anybody because I barely pay myself, especially when, when you have the busiest day of the year and you lose product because it doesn't make it out. So I hope I can hire someone. So I don't have a big goals. It's small steps, but fingers crossed. Yep. 30 years in our business, so it's kind of new.
Mm-hmm. And those are the most important steps to have. You got to keep moving forward. That's the main thing. For folks who are joining us from outside of Newfoundland and Labrador, and there are many of you, we've had our second big on winter storm of the year, yesterday and today. So most of us are dealing with 40+ centimeters of snow. And for folks in the Valentine's retail and restaurant sectors, this is the second year in a row that Valentine's Day has been hit in this way. So it's been, it's a struggle when it comes to the weather. I really think that the weather gods have a very nasty sense of humor when it comes to romance. It's just not a good thing. But there you have it. Next, I have one final question for all 4 of you, and then we're going to open it up to some questions from our participants. But as I ask you this question, I'd like you to really reflect on it as well, and not just tell me the piece of advice that you have, but more importantly, why this piece of advice is important to you. So if you had one piece of advice or counsel that you were going to share with webinar participants as they embark on their own entrepreneurial journey or deal with the challenges that they're currently facing, or, understand the ebb and flow of the entrepreneurial cycle, all those sorts of pieces, What is that piece of advice? And more importantly, why is it so important to you? What has that piece of advice taught you that you want to pass it on? And for this question, I am going, who haven't I asked first yet? I think it's, no, I've asked Sarah. Jenna, I haven't asked you first yet. You get to go first.
Okay. I guess if I had one piece of advice I'd like to give people, is it's not going to sound like advice at first. You're always going to have obstacles and you're always going to have problems that pop up. My advice is find your own way around. Not everyone's going to be able to take the approach to get around it, but you know what you're doing, you know why you're doing it, you know what your passion is. Find your way around your obstacle. It doesn't matter if you have to go around it, over it, under, find your way, because every no is just one step closer to that yes. So basically just keep going.
And has that been a piece of advice that was offered to you as you were going through your journey? No, that comes from beating my head off the wall a few times and having a lot of obstacles come my way and finding very outside the box ways around them, but all very much worth it. Okay, thank you. How about you, Christina? What is your piece of advice that you would offer and why would you offer it?
This one's coming from me, didn't read it anywhere. It comes from experience. Find friends that are in business, like, and Lo helps to, find these connections. I wouldn't have made it through this Christmas season if I hadn't had find out Nicole Bruce from Bullseye Branding to help me get my website up in time for sell my centerpieces. And I sell like 250 centerpieces, which is a lot for a florist that does everything, like forging, delivering, designing, marketing, billing, packaging. Find friends because you can help them. That's great too. And when you need help, they are there for you. That is my piece of advice.
So your networks are very important and you need to find people who are not only there to listen, but also there to pitch in and help when needed. Definitely. And how about you, Sarah?
My original answer that I had written down was stolen by Manjit. But mine is like, take a deep breath and do it. Believe in yourself, give it 110%, because there's never a right time. You can bog yourself down with years of planning. I'm an extremely spontaneous person. I decided to start my business and launched a Kickstarter for it and was fully funded in like 3 weeks. And that, created a job for myself in an area where I'm so rural, there just really weren't any jobs. So trying to figure out how to use all of my skills, well, sometimes you just have to create it yourself. And be ready for that and own it. But my second little piece of advice, because I always have a backup, is know your strengths and hire for your weaknesses. I could, have quit 800 times in my first year of business with bookkeeping and accounting and never get on the wrong side of CRA. Hire a bookkeeper. Hiring for your weaknesses, those folks will always pay for themselves because they free you up to work on those parts of your business that only you can do the best that you can do.
That's a very good piece of advice about CRA. I completely agree. Don't want to be on their radar ever. No, definitely. Thank you, Sarah. And you, Joyce?
Yes, for me, it will be seek help. Get out of your head and seek help. And I'm saying this, seek help early, because a lot of times when we start, especially maybe, I don't know, most entrepreneurs, I don't know, from my experience and what I'm seeing, you get overwhelmed, you don't know what you're doing. So, and a lot of times we focus on our skills, the skills that we have. We know how to bake, So we just focus, we bake, 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 bake. We know how to cook, so we cook. We know how to do this, and that's what we do. We do not seek help seek for organizations that can help give us training. Like in my case, mastermind is what I needed for me to master my own skills, to be on top of what I was doing. Seek help. There are organizations out there that provide services to help you. They get funding to help you. But if you don't seek them, no one is going to discover you. No one is coming to get you. You have to get yourself out there. You have to go and explore. You have to put yourself in situations where opportunities will find you. Stop stay in your head. Get out of your head and get out. Seek resources. That is what I would say for most entrepreneurs. A lot of times I want to start, I'm not sure. I want to do this, I'm not sure. Get it over with. Get out there and do it. That is what I would say. Tap into the resources out there. As I said, they are out there, but if you don't seek for them, if you don't look for them, you can never find them. There are tons of them. A lot of people don't even know. I've spoken to people that I came to meet in this Halifax. They don't know about the Center for Women in Business. They are in here, they started business. They don't know about it. They don't know any other craft alliances there. They do craft. Craft is you use your strength, but they don't know the organizations out there that can take you out on a trade show, on a trade mission. They don't know because they focus on their craft and they stay there and just within the environment. Get out there and seek help.
Thank you, Joyce. That's a very good piece of advice as well. And I know that Manjit touched on it and some others of you touched on it, but I love the way you phrased it in the sense that you hit the nail on the head that you have to seek it out. It's not going to come to you. You know, Enlo and I know the organizations across Atlantic Canada, we do a great deal of outreach. We try and get out there, but most of the people who come to us because they've talked to someone else who's had a positive experience. And if we don't have those people out there talking and getting the message out there, then people don't know to come to us and we don't know to reach out to them. So it is very important to make sure you work your networks, make sure you get to know people and figure out who can help you when and why. So thank you for that. So that's some great advice. We are now at the portion of our day where we are going to have some questions. If we have some questions from the audience, I'm going to ask Susan to join us and let us know, do we have any questions?
We do. So, and some were similar to Manjit's and some are brand new. So one of the brand new ones is around startup investment. And it was probably prompted by Sarah talking about, she mentioned Kickstarter. But audience wants to know, how do you get your startup funds? How do you or your first accelerator funds? What was your experiences?
So why don't I ask, each of you, and if you have something to share, you can, and if not, then we can just move on. But I'll start with Joyce and say, Joyce, do you have an answer for that one?
For startup funds, I'm not sure I got any any fund. I haven't gotten any funds. What I did get was resources to help me in different ways. The masterminds, business plan, so many resources that I needed to own my craft, to direct me, going on trade missions and all that. So that is what I have gotten. I haven't gotten real money. I haven't. A lot of people see me and they think I have gotten funded from organization. I haven't. Everything is through my own sweat and all that. But those who have been, the people that probably have been able to tap into that resource, I haven't yet. So I will leave that to those who have been able to tap into those resources.
Okay, so in terms of your experience to date, you've received a lot of resources and help from a resource point of view, which has a monetary value in and of itself. But in terms of straight funding, you haven't had an opportunity to seek out any financing from any banking institutions or anything like that, or avail of any programs that exist. So, okay, thank you. So how about you, Christina? Do you have anything to share with that one?
I was really thrifty with my money. Coming from communism. I grew up in communism. We were really poor growing up. And I was on maternity leave for a year when I started my business, and then that ran out, and I needed some income because I just, couldn't live without that, and my business really wasn't generating any money. So I managed to get self-employment program because I was really not in business yet, still with a newborn baby girl, year-old at that time. So SEP, like self-employment program. And there was a process where Enlo really stepped in, and my advisor, Lindsay Mercer, helped me to provide the business plan, the 40-page business plan. And I managed to get on this like payroll for a year. And that saved my life. I would not be able, I'd be broke. Bank wouldn't give me money. Like I'm nobody really, like my books, it's like broke even. It's fresh product. It's really, really hard. So that got me through another year, and that money will, sure enough, it helped me. I really appreciate it. That was it was not like thousands of dollars. I'm small, I'm tiny, but it was huge for me, huge.
Okay, thank you, Christina. And how about you, Jenna?
So when I first started at the farmer's market, I started with $250. It was my money. Every bit that I earned that summer, I put right back into the business. And then the pandemic hit, and I was kind of at that standstill because my home kitchen was licensed, so I wasn't allowed to sell anywhere. So that's when I started taking different programs and started getting involved with women in business. And I created my business plan, which I was able to back up with that time I had spent with my, all 6 hours of sale a week, but it still proved a viable idea. And I still had a really hard time finding funding. I wasn't able to do the traditional methods that a lot of people can. But because women in business did show interest in my business, I was able to go to a local incubator. And they actually helped me secure funds to get my first brick and mortar. So once one person finds value in what you are doing, there is more chances of people jumping on board. You will have a harder time finding startup capital and working capital than you will when you are in your growth stage and ready to expand. So those of you that are just in that first trying to find that capital to just get started, that is very difficult. Once you have proven yourself and once you're in that growth stage, it does get marginally easier. It's still not super easy, but it is marginal, right? You've heard the saying, proof is in the pudding, right? So when you're going for funding, you really need to show that.
Thank you, Jenna. And Sarah.
I totally want to hear other questions, so I'll speed through this, but same as everybody else, right? Like no bank is willing to lend money, especially to a food operation. We were much more of a restaurant when we first started. So launching a Kickstarter program, crowdfunding is not for everybody. And I ended up paying out just as much in the rewards as I got in funding. But I started with all used equipment found at, restaurant closing auctions, and you make it work. You start small, you are so thrifty, you save your money, you reinvest, and you'll do a million things right at the same time as doing a million things wrong, and you'll grow from that and just be so tenacious. It all works out in the end.
And I think that is the key. You do have to be tenacious, and you have to want it enough to work through those hurdles. From a funding perspective, I think that there is currently, everyone's taking a harder look at that. Banks are taking a harder look at that. Financial institutions in general, programs, there's beginning to be an understanding of the fact that women entrepreneurs have real challenges when it comes to just having that seed money. And it's amazing what we're able to do with $10,000. And everyone thinks that, oh, we're looking for like hundreds of thousands. Like, no, 10,000 would really make a difference. So that message is slowly getting through. I hope that there's some traction to it. Susan, do you have another question for us?
Yeah. So the question is about social media and marketing, and what is the best social media strategy that our panelists have tried?
Okay, I see Christina shaking her head yes, so I'm going to ask her first. She's got something to say.
Do it all the time. It doesn't have to have fancy equipment. My old basement, just a workbench that was already there, 2 headlights that I put my phone on like this, and shot tons of videos of making halos and funny things and stupid things, and make things that are gorgeous out of just things I picked in the woods. And that gave me the traction of public and customers. They are loyal. They just love seeing fun stuff. It's never going to be perfect. If you feel like you have to wait for the perfect lighting and the perfect phone, because my phone is broken, you see, it's not even that great. But I just do it. Have fun.
And as a result of that, you've built up your own personal brand. People know you and know your bouquets and your products based on the fact that it is very much tied to the land in which you live. It's not the flowers. Everyone knows they're going to get something in that bouquet that came out of a garden or a wooded area, or yeah. So you feel that that's a big part of your personal brand?
Yes.
Thank you. Anyone else want to take that one on? How about you, Sarah? Oh, okay. We'll start with Sarah and then go to Joyce.
I think I'm crazy on the side of social media, because I still run all of our social media myself on my phone. I have not outsourced any of that yet. So just like Christina, it's not perfect. It's definitely thankfully my current phone is not broken. But customers want to feel like they're part of the experience. They want to be entertained and engaged. So show them process photos. Folks want to know that you're a real human behind your product. They're choosing you actively. You're not as easy to find as the big corporate brands out there. They want to feel like they're a part of it. So I feel as long as you can kind of show that through your social media, you'll grab them. And you just need, being consistent to keep them there is also the other half of that game.
That's great. Thanks. Joyce.
Yes, I will say, if anyone follow me on Instagram, simply go Natural Cosmetics, you will see the journey from day one. And I wasn't perfect. I was living in, I remember our apartment that we were in. It was a mess, and I had 2 toddlers, a baby and a toddler. My son was all over the place. He's actually the reason why I had to take the phone, so that I can get my mind off the things he will put me through, that I have to deal with it. Don't wait for it to be perfect. Whatever you are, you will find your crowd, and they will go with you. They will grow with you. Whichever stage you are, just do it. Just take your picture, whichever way you can, whichever phone you have, use it. Use what you have now. Don't think I need to have some fancy phone. I need to be, my working environment needs to be perfect. Well, you can prop it up. You can set it up to make you look more appealing, and you can look more appealing, but people want to see you. There are a lot of people that have grown with me lately. I check my followership. It's not growing, but it's not going down. It's not growing like fast as it used to, because Instagram, the algorithm has changed, but they are still there, and people are very much interested. Those who followed you to support you, to see what you're doing, they will stay in tune with your growth, to keep them motivated, because everyone has challenges. Everyone has their own thing they are struggling with. And when they find you on your own, the level that you are, they can tap into you and stay motivated. So whatever skill that you have, bring it out there. Just get a camera, take a picture. Anything you do, take a picture, okay? You just don't want to show yourself naked. That's what we don't want to see.
No, I agree completely. And Jenna, you get to follow that up with the last word.
Unfortunately, social media is not my strong suit. my advice would be authentic and be consistent. I listened to that first part, not so much the second part. I, like a lot of you, do all of that stuff on my own. So I just use it as if I'm talking to my friends, and it seems to work. I'm sure it could be a lot better, but it's working for me. So I think be authentic, right? Because if you're trying to be something you're not, it's going to come through, and then people will not be engaged and they'll just push it to the side. So I'd say just be you.
Perfect. Thank you. So that's it. We've heard just do it. When it comes to marketing and communications, regardless, just do it. Doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to be engaging, and it has to be authentic. And once you create your brand by just getting out there and doing that, people will follow you because they're engaged because of your authenticity and because they believe in what you're doing. So that is kind of a formation of all of the advice that you just provided there in terms of marketing and communication. We are also now at time, so I just want to take this opportunity to thank all of you who have joined us today for our presentation, as well as thank our 4 panelists, Sarah, Christina, Joyce, and Jenna. Thank you so much for joining us today and sharing your journey to date. Thanks everyone who has participated and as also who's been a part of this project for the past 4 years, as the Atlantic Canadian Women in Growth Partnership Project has worked together to create programming and to provide opportunities for underrepresented women within the entrepreneurial space. So thank you for your participation. Thank you for your insights. And thank you so much for being here. Take care, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.